Based on statements made by Lisa Hanna, who is one of the People's National Party's presidential candidates, she is not against the idea of naming Peter Bunting to the Senate if she were to be elected as the next president of the People's National Party. Ms. Hanna also went on to state that she will not be spending an exorbitant amount of money on her presidential campaign. Despite the political history and the competitiveness that has been displayed between Lisa Hanna and Peter Bunting from the 2019 Bunting Challenge, where it saw Peter Bunting put up a challenge in September 2019 against Dr. Peter Phillips for the presidency of the People's National Party, where Lisa was on the 1PNP team and Bunting was on the Rise United team. Lisa Hanna has clearly stated that she is not against the idea of naming Peter Bunting as a senator to the opposition benches if she were to be elected. According to Lisa Hanna, although it is not the norm for party members who are unsuccessful at the parliamentary polls to be named to the Senate, she would be willing to name former Manchester Central Member of Parliament Peter Bunting as a future senator if she were to be elected as the next president of the People's National Party. Lisa Hanna will be challenging for the presidency of the People's National Party on November 7, 2020. Peter Bunting lost his seat in central Manchester in the September 3rd parliamentary elections. Based on the current situation that exists in the Senate, where there is a vacancy amongst the 8 senators that were named by Dr. Peter Phillips, because Norman Horn chose to forfeit being sworn in October 2020, because his firm belief was that he would later resign on November 6th in an effort to give the next president and opposition leader of the People's National Party the opportunity to select and appoint their own senators. His decision was based on the principle that he believes in giving the next leader and president of the People's National Party a free hand to choose their opposition senators. When asked if she would consider naming and selecting Peter Bunting for the vacancy that currently exists in the Senate, Lisa Hanna stated that it's normally not the practice within the PNP to appoint persons who have necessarily lost their seat to the Senate, but it is a conversation that we can all have, certainly moving forward into the future, to build the unity and to rebuild the party. She further went on to state, "I believe all comrades have a space, and I believe that we need the best people with the best talents in the best positions." The Senate vacancy had arisen from Norman Horn's forfeiting of his appointment. He was not sworn in on the scheduled date of October 16. Norman Horn was one of the 8 senators that were previously appointed by opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips, whose intention is to vacate office on November 6th, the day prior to Hanna and Mark Golding going up challenge for the presidency of the People's National Party in the internal presidential elections, which are scheduled for November 7th, 2020. The decision that was taken by Norman Horn was done in the interest of the People's National Party. Based on his statement, he made that decision so that the next leader of the opposition and president of the People's National Party would be able to freely select and appoint their own senators. Norman Horn had also mentioned that if he were previously appointed as a senator to the opposition benches in the Senate, he would have chosen to resign on November 6th, just a day prior to the presidential elections. Therefore, morally and ethically, he had to decline being sworn in as a senator. Peter Bunting is a former Minister of National Security and also a former PNP General Secretary. Unfortunately, he lost his Member of Parliament seat in central Manchester after he was unsuccessful in 2019 with the Bunting challenge, where he decided to wrestle the presidency from Dr. Peter Phillips. However, Dr. Peter Phillips won that election by approximately 76 votes. It was a close challenge, and many persons have blamed that challenge for the massive loss that the People's National Party suffered at the recently concluded September 3rd parliamentary elections. This statement coming from Lisa Hanna is a surprise twist, however, because Lisa Hanna and Peter Bunting were on opposing sides. Of course, both of these individuals were competitors. Lisa was leading the charge for Dr. Peter Phillips with the one PNP team, whilst Peter Bunting, along with Mark Golding and Dayton Campbell, were leading the charge by his United team to ensure that Peter Bunting would be able to take over the presidency from Dr. Peter Phillips in September 2019. However, the Bunting challenge was unsuccessful, and therefore no one will ever know what it would have been like today in 2020 if Peter Bunting was the one leading the People's National Party to the 2020 September 3rd general elections. We don't know what would have changed. We are not aware of what would have been different, or if there would still be so many rifts and divisions within the People's National Party. However, it seems Ms. Hanna is on the right path, because her statement is that she is willing and able and is not opposed to the idea of naming Peter Bunting to the Senate, because the party needs to have the best persons in the best positions. Based on a statement coming from Lisa Hanna, she has clearly stated that she will not be spending any exorbitant amounts on her presidential campaign. Lisa Hanna is a presidential candidate for the opposition People's National Party, and she will be going up for the presidency of the party on November 7, 2020. However, she has been very clear in her statement that there will be no glamorous or any high or superfluous, exorbitantly financed campaign. She has stated that this will not occur because people are currently starving out there in a country that is being battered by the economic fallout from the pandemic. I want a practical, pragmatic, compassionate presidential campaign that is relevant to the times that we are living in, because it would be very audacious. It would actually be almost obscene if I was spending the kind of exorbitant money on running a very glitzy campaign. I will tell you that straight. I cannot find it within myself. Although she made no reference to it, Lisa Hanna's comments came only 24 hours after her fellow challenger Mark Golding's virtual campaign launch, which included actress Cheryl Lee Ralph, his business partner and financial powerhouse Chris Daring, and the influential Joe Matelon endorsing him. Mark Golding also received primary endorsements from the president of the PNP Patriots, the vice president of the PNP Women's Movement, as well as various of his St. Andrews Southern constituencies, youth and community leaders. That event, which saw a musical performance from Taros Riley. The production of this launch is now available for viewing on social media platforms, and based on information released by the Golden team, they managed to garner approximately 18,000 views online. According to Lisa Hanna, she will be utilizing a targeted approach that speaks directly to the voters, who are the PNP delegates. She will use a targeted approach to communicate with these party delegates, who will choose the next president of the People's National Party, to replace Dr. Peter Phillips. She also mentioned that the hard choices that are being encountered by many Jamaicans currently who have no jobs as a result of the pandemic, which is expected in some areas, will shrink the Jamaican economy by double digits by the end of the year 2020. This is a very difficult choice, according to Hanna, as to whether to spend limited resources on data for their children to access online classes or to purchase food. She further stated that checks that were made with principals in her constituency in Senan Southeastern had indicated that 75% of the students do not have access to education, and this has caused more challenges with the pandemic. Education is the only thing in this environment that can give persons an opportunity to have a better way of life. She further went on to state that her campaign for the PNP presidency cannot be divorced from these and other issues. She went on to state that she is cognizant and aware that running a leadership race cannot have dissonance with that of what the reality is on the ground. Hanna is being very conservative with her presidential campaign. She will not be using any exorbitant financing methods, and she will be taking a direct and a targeted approach to communicate with delegates who will be voting on November 7th for the next PNP president. However, Mark Golding's approach is different. He has launched a virtual campaign, and he has gotten support from many persons in the private sector. So, however, is willing to name Bunting to the Senate. She were to be elected as the next president of the People's National Party. So it seems like Lisa is staying true to her statement about unity and love within the party and setting an example. Leave your comments down below on these matters that have been discussed. Subscribe and thanks for watching.